Hello, this is Imani Latif. I am the creator of Peep Comics, and you're watching the Black Comic Universe. I'm Imani Latif. I'm creator of Peep Comics, a platform for Black comic book creators and Black comic books. And our next guest, and this is being streamed live on The Experience. Please follow, like, and share this show and all of their shows throughout the week. You can follow them at _EXP on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And our next guest is my friend Andre Batts. What's up now?
Hey, what's up there? What's up, Imani? How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Good. We're still trying to get do we need to get a link to my friend, our friend Turtle, or he's gonna make it?
Turtle, I'm hoping he's gonna make it because he received the message.
All right. But we can get started. It's interesting. I had to bring you in personally because your event, Motor City Black Age of Comics, is one of my first, comic book events that I, may have vended at or even visited up in Detroit, Michigan. And there's a ton of, not just my personal history, there's a ton of history in that program in and of itself. Can you give us a primer as to what the Motor City Black Age of Comics is all about and the history behind that program?
Well, the Motor City Black Age, started back in 2002. The premise came from when Churchill started back in, I think it was 1993. He started up the Black Age of Comics event. He brought together a couple of comic artists out of the Midwest, and East Coast Black Age of Comics had ended up sprouting up, which was Yumi Odom in Philadelphia. And after that, I went out there, I think at its inception, back in, I think it was 2002. And after that, Yumi, he reached out to me. He said, "Hey, man, you want to bring the Black Age into Detroit or whatever?" Because it was another guy that was thinking about doing it, but he wasn't familiar with, different individuals to talk to here in Detroit. Mm-hmm. They knew me out in Philadelphia, but the crazy part about it is the guy, he went to the Shrine of the Black Madonna, which was, the church located in Detroit, Atlanta, one other city. And that's where my books was carried at that point in time. So he knew about the books, but he didn't know how to contact me. Back, books were black and white. We didn't have any contact information like we do now. So Yumi ended up connecting me with the brother. His name is Abiyomi. He connected me with him. Once we connected, we we established the Black Age of Comics at the Shrine of the Black Madonna, which was upstairs of the store. So it only could hold like maybe 10, 15 people. So we was just trying it out and see, how would it work out? Would people really, gravitate to it? Arvell Jones came out, Keith Pollard, all the big wigs here, because, Arvell, he did a couple of Marvel comics as well as Keith Pollard.
Yeah.
They did a couple of Marvel comics. So they were based out of Detroit. So they came out and, basically passed the torch and told me, hey, I really like what you're doing or whatever. And I got their stamp of approval. So I was good after that once I got their stamp of approval. So the following year I did it at another location, which was the Russell Bazaar. And it was a slight bigger location. It was different. That's when I started bringing more entertainment into what I was doing as it relates to the actual con and different artists coming through. This first year I only had maybe 3 of us were there, including Arvell Jones. And I had, forget who, somebody came in from Chicago. Oh yeah, it was Lamorris Richmond. He came from Chicago, him and a brother named Tim came through from Chicago. He was doing editorial cartoons at the time. That's basically how we got started.
Okay. And actually, Marcus, in a previous conversation I was having, he actually mentioned your book, Dreadlocks, that came out in the 90s. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about that book? And we were talking about just how much work and history that was taking place, definitely during the 90s in particular. Even before, we were saying, we're not taking anything away from publishers like, Milestone, but we just wanted to make sure people understand and recognize the amount of work that was out there during that time period with like Brother Man, with Dreadlocks, with Purge, like all of these different, books out there and creators that were actually doing like a ton of very quality independent work.
Right. Well, even with Dreadlocks, it started after, I had the idea, established a friend of mine's apartment. We were just sitting up, messing around, drawing different things. One of my friends, one of my brothers, he was into fashion. So he was showing us different concepts that he was working on for fashion. And another good friend of mine, he was working on, he was trying to do some gym shoes or whatever, which both fell in the line of fashion. Whereas me, I was into comics. So I basically showed them a concept that I had of a character, that I was interested in doing, because in reading comic books and coming up reading comic books, the only comics I really read were Marvel, a few DC. But for the most part, I realized that there was no representation with us in comics or whatever. So eventually I got out and I met Todd, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Todd and Roman, which both of them were, out of Detroit. And I met them and they gave me a few pointers or whatever. And they really was hardcore with the pointers. But I accepted that, as it was or whatever, because I felt, hey, I can do this, whatever, if they can do it. Blah, blah. Then I ended up meeting Brother Dawood in DC at the Million Man March, because I had Brother Man Comics at the Shrine of the Black Madonna, which you heard me mention that a little bit earlier. And when I seen him at the Million Man March, he was passing out these postcards with his artwork on it. And I was like, man, this artwork looks really familiar. Like, the brother David Sims that draw Brother Man, you wouldn't know him. You wouldn't happen to know him, would you?
He's like, yeah, that's me.
That's who he was. And I was like, wow. And I was starstruck, actually. I'm gonna be honest. I was kind of starstruck.
When I met Dawood for the first time, I was starstruck too, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Believe
I think it might have been it was at Motor City. It might have been at Motor City too. Yeah. Okay.
So him and I met. He talked, and he basically gave me. He was really positive. He told me, since that's the avenue that I was going in, he really pushed me to go that route. So I ended up meeting another brother, Alfonso Washington, who was doing another book called Omega Man, Original Man, which was back then. So at that point, with all these guys motivate me or whatever, and then my brother, he also motivated me to get out and do my own thing or whatever, because I was busy trying to latch on and get in with them or whatever, with everybody I met. I can bring this to you or whatever, because I had different characters besides Dreadlocks at the time. And my brother was like, you're working, 9 to 5, you're making, X, Y, Z. You should really invest in what you're doing. So, and I had went to a lecture with Minister Farrakhan, and he had mentioned something about investing in yourself. So a lot of different things motivated me into getting into creating Dreadlocks. Once I got into doing my first book, which was fully colored, well, not fully colored, the cover was colored, colored literally with the colored pencil. Wasn't done digitally. I had no idea, what I was doing. You knew it was my first book ever. Right. So I went on and did that, and I was able, the typesetting and everything was done by hand. Everything was done by hand. I got it, and I was like, wait a minute, I thought my book was supposed to look this way. I'm thinking in my head that the printer was supposed to change some things up, but me being naive to it all, it was a lesson well learned, because at that point, I went on and, started stepping up my game with Dreadlocks, because why? We know, like you spoke on earlier, quality is everything.
Right.
So I ended up getting more into the quality of the work as far as the story, as well as the look of the character. And I started getting more artists to work with me and things of that nature, so I could continue the story on. And it was at that point, Black comics just took off at that point, as far as Black superheroes, Black horror, science fiction. And my storyline and the arc of my story was always based in Kemet or whatever, or Africa, Akibalan, whatever you choose, the words you choose to use. But needless to say, that's what the basis of my character is. And he's obviously, living in my city, Detroit, obviously. The basis, like I said, is comedic based, spiritual based, a lot of mysticism, things of that nature.
Right.
And I felt that wasn't too many people touching into that, except for it was another brother that came out, around the same time. Kenji was doing Witch Doctor.
Yeah,
we all doing our thing, at that point.
Witch Doctor, all those books out of that time period. I wonder if there's a way to quantify the value of those books now. Like, because I feel like those books are the foundation of, if that was like, the term that was coined as, the Black Age of Comics, is that was the first wave of that. It's definitely the foundation of what this new Black, age of comics that we're in right now. It definitely comes out of that time period, those books. I was wondering if you had ever thought to, like, as a collector or as a creator as well, is there a way to, like, quantify the value of those books?
I don't think so. I wish it was a way to quantify the value of the books. I've done a little research, but haven't really found an avenue to do so, to be honest. Because we still have the situation where people still don't know that Black people do comics.
Right.
They still think that, Black Panther, even though, the movie did so well, and I appreciate the movie and everything, they're still in the mindset that that's a Black character, but it's really not a Black character created by a Black person.
Right.
So we have to have more of us, like, say for instance, if if black comic industry blew up, the independent industry blew up, then I could see it happening. You
Mm-hmm.
know, first we have to unify as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Once that happens, I could see it happening. Until we unify, yes, we can quantify it all, but everybody's, either cliquish or is going one way or the other. Some people are still more or less caught up into what DC and Marvel are doing still to this day.
Um, True.
And
Um,
there's nothing wrong with that or whatever, because I follow, some of their products and lines as well. But I think if we're really trying to do this, we need to unify it.
I hear you.
Then at that point, all of us that were here prior in the early 90s, at
Mm-hmm.
that point, we can quantify and show what all of our stories and our artwork is worth at that point.
Are you encouraged by anything that the other, like some of the current crop of indies are doing right now?
Well, I like a couple of them. I like quite a few of them actually. I like Tuskegee Airs. I
Mm-hmm.
like that. I like his Nana. I really like his story. His writing is really good.
Right.
I like man, there's so many. Acolyte. I like that. That's one of my
Oh yeah.
ways with Lonzo's. I like
Yeah.
Jabbar Brown. I like Max Man. That does magnificent. The Maximum Man.
Mm-hmm.
There's several of them that I like. I really like their stories. I like what they're doing. And I just think that, like I said, if we were unified, we could do a whole lot more.
I hear you.
You
Well,
can't,
that's
it's
what.
the name, really.
Yeah, that's definitely why. That's what we're here for, is bring this thing together. What can you speak on like your history with because you're an illustrator too. Where did you go to
Yeah.
school?
Well, I didn't go to art school or whatever like that.
Okay.
I basically was drawing, right off the head. But I
Right.
did end up going to Center for Creative Studies for a minute to get some touch-up skills, as far as figure drawing, as far as anatomy, getting a better handle with that, because sometimes, we get to drawing and we end up with extra muscles,
Mm-hmm.
extra tendons, things that are not
Right.
already necessary. So I did a lot of that just to polish up my skills a little bit, and also took some animation classes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as far as writing is concerned, that came through college. The 1 year, 2 years that I did of college, and that was it.
Okay.
Story development, that just comes from different things that I was reading, and I was able to bounce off what I was reading as far as text work and bounce it into comic work.
Oh, for sure. So how's Black Age of Comics going now? The Motor City Black Age of Comics going now. We've been on this hiatus as far as the
Right.
pandemic and stuff like that. But what are your plans for the near future as far as bringing the event back stronger than ever?
Well, the Black Age is actually was scheduled for June of last year, but we had the pandemic that kicked in, so it had to be canceled. So I'm looking at doing it again this June coming up, but I just have to wait on the venue.
Mm-hmm.
The venue is basically controlled by the state, and the state got everything shut down, and everything that is open is open up for 25% capacity. So I want to do that, but I'm just waiting on the venue. If not, I guess I'm gonna have to go the route that some other individuals are doing, like what we're doing right now. It's gonna have to be virtual.
Yeah, some virtual stuff. Yeah.
Right. It may have to be virtual. It's probably gonna take place at the last minute. I said maybe a month before the event, because it was scheduled to be June 19th and 20th, the Juneteenth weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For that.
Yeah. I was really encouraged when I went, to your event up in Detroit. And there's so many other black themed comic book events around the country, and I was always when I first started out, my plan, my goal was, hopefully to hit all of them, ideally, because I always thought that as an independent creator or someone who was wanting to work with independent creators, the best way to reach the Black audience was through, the Black theme events like Motor City Black Age of Comics, OnyxCon in Atlanta, MeccaCon in Detroit also. We got John, who has the Black Comic Festival in
California and New York.
In California and in New York. Actually, and then there was one started in California. The other one that started in California, I'm drawing a blank, but Jason Reeves and those guys has started another event, and then somebody actually started an event down in Louisiana as well. So so like the momentum was, this is all, yeah.
Even your event that you had, Glass City Comics.
Yeah, Glass City. Yep, Glass City Comic Fest, Black Comic Fest here in Toledo, Ohio. We had a huge turnout, and I think people are just amazed or just amazed at the support that we get when we put ourselves out there and really dedicate ourselves to this thing. And I think people, when you go to events like this, you see the demand for the type of work that creators are making. Like the demand is very strong. And I'm always saying that the reality is, I'm not sure if there's enough content or enough creators that really meet the demand that for Black creation.
Not meaning to cut you off. I think we have enough. I think we do have enough creators to meet the demand.
Okay.
I think it's about, a lot of creators want to be treated as if they're the star of the show, which we all are the star of the shows. Don't get me wrong. So that being said, they expect these small events to be able to tab their way, as far as everything that they do, as far as eating, eating and lodging, so on and so forth. But everybody, you can't really take care of as far as like that. You probably get one person there like that as far as who's a star in your industry. But we're all of us, basically all the different cons that you just named are all small in comparisons to a San Diego Comic Con or New York Comic Con or Wizard World and so on and so forth. We have the space and we have the artists. I think the artists have to be willing to sacrifice and go to the shows.
The smaller shows, the smaller shows, you mean?
To the smaller shows where they'll be seen. They have to be willing to understand that for sure you will be seen at a Black Age of Comics event. Whether it's Motor City Black Age, East Coast, Black Comics Festival, Afrocon, so on and so forth. We got 2 events here in Detroit. In Detroit, it's the mecca of Blackness. So for sure, any show in Detroit, you should be trying to make it to.
Right.
Real talk. If you're doing comics and it's a comic event here and it's a Black person putting it together, you should be here.
Can you speak to that? Can you expound on that? Because it's becoming a recurring theme that basically we have creators that are coming out of the South, places like Mississippi. We have places like I'm talking to Keith Cross out of Atlanta. It's sort of like every creator can draw from their community, has their own personal advantage, and as far as creating their books, they can be the first, and they could possibly be the first in their town. They can, like for me, I'm considered. People walk up to me to call me the comic book guy. It's like how have you drawn from your city as far as Detroit in terms of as far as in your book, like how has it inspired your work?
Right. Well, see, the thing I'm going to touch on 2 things as far as Detroit is concerned. One thing about my city or whatever, I don't know if you know or whatever, but I just received the Spirit of Detroit Award.
Okay.
ago, which is a big thing in Detroit.
Oh,
The
congratulations.
reason I received that was because of the work that I do and the work that I put in as far as comics are concerned. And I'm known for being, the one that put Dreadlocks and putting Detroit on the map in the sense of Black comics is concerned. I add a lot of things in my stories about, my city in my comics or whatever, as far as Dreadlocks is concerned. Again, as far as my show is concerned, a lot of people come out just because they know that Urban Style Comics is going to be there. Dreadlocks, Blackwash, Shahad AD, that I'm going to be there. So I get a lot of people come out just to support me. So with that being said, some of them come out to support the others that's on the bill as well. But once they come to the event and they come in to support me, now they seeing that there's other guys here or other women here that have the same concept going, the same quality going. So at this point, everybody will get invested in as far as, when people come out and they know they're going to see Urban Style Comics, they know that they're going to see, Generate Comics, Detroit Tradecraft. They know they're going to see these guys for sure. But now, they're going to see more. They know they're going to see, Arbel Jones, Keith Pollard, so on and so forth. But now they get to see more coming from elsewhere. Because one thing about the city, Detroit, if you from Atlanta, Mississippi, and things like that, they're like, wow, you came way up here, blah blah. They get excited about that type of stuff. And I think they would apply with us going, south into places like Jackson, Mississippi, Atlanta. We have Onyx Con. I've been there quite a few times.
Yeah,
and that's one of my favorite events. Actually, if my timing is there, I can be there because I have much respect and I have, a lot of supporters in Atlanta. They got a lot of supporters in Philadelphia, a lot in New York, and so on and so forth. But as far as in my hometown, I can do a pop-up shop and I'll have a lot of people there. Just me, myself there. But I want to make sure that it's not about me. That's the whole thing with me. You know me or whatever. Everything has never been about just Andre Batts. It's always been about everybody around Andre Batts. Andre Batts is going to get his. It go without saying at this point.
Gotcha. So, so basically that's how you draw, your inspiration from the city. How does that come into the actual stories in your books?
Some of it come into the books or whatever, but by my, I don't draw a whole lot of inspiration in that sense or whatever, as far as talking about Detroit throughout the book or whatever, because a lot of my stories are more based off mysticism and different challenges that the character is dealing with within or whatever that actually he has to face in his external world. Detroit, as far as the politics in Detroit, I try not to add a lot of that in there, but it is in there.
Okay.
And it can influence some of the writing. I try not to get too in depth into the politics of my city. I would have to use a character that's not as superhero like much of a superhero like Dreadlocks is. It have to be more of a human-based character, just human, something like a Punisher type, character. You go out in the city and this is what we're dealing with every day. And that right there is going to cause me to take this character somewhere totally different, like, doing something, good or bad to the mayor. So on and so forth. I have inspiration from my city in that sense. But as far as the people that are my fan base, that's where I draw my inspiration from.
I had this. So from what I recall, it's like during that time in the 90s, the Black Age of Comics, a lot of those titles had this very strong connection to, religion or spirituality. And I think at the time there might have been a stigma, when people say like black comics, they thought of, basically the whole idea of, woke or hotep and those type of titles. And you actually had seen, creators sort of mock that whole era of, comics that were inspired by that. What do you say to critics that that sort of pigeonhole that era of comic books that came out of that time period?
Well, first off, we have to get into the term hotep. Well, we'll get into that. We'll start with that. Because a lot of people that use that term when they say hotep, and they say this is a hotep comic. Number one, they don't even know what the word hotep means.
Right.
You know what I mean? Until they figure that out, then they can discuss hotep or whatever. And it has nothing to do with a person. We're speaking as far as, assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam.
Right.
Hotep. That's all the same right there. So when people coined that phrase, they coined it out of ignorance, actually. Because you go back in time and you study these individuals and you study the comics of that time frame and you study what was going on as far as the politics of our era when you're dealing with Ronald Reagan and his politics, Reaganomics, George Bush, and so on and so forth, the first George Bush. And you know why we have to be coming strong. That's just like calling Black Panthers hoteps. You know what I mean? That's
True.
like calling Malcolm X a hotep. Things of that nature. People in this era, whatever that are doing comics or whatever, when they use those terms, they need to respect those that came before them and understand the era that they were dealing with is the reason why they are where they are right now. Like, say, for instance, Game Comics. Technically speaking, if it wasn't for the quote unquote hotep era or the era of Black consciousness, we didn't even use the term woke back then at all. We use consciousness because the thing of the matter, woke is a term of endearment today in the sense of it represents ignorance as far as I'm concerned. Because even with that being said, a Caucasian can claim that they're woke to today's politics.
Right.
We considered ourselves awakened to everything that was going on. Not woke. Nobody even walked around saying they were woke. We were conscious of the African spirituality. We were conscious of the politics that we were dealing with coming from Caucasian America, whatever. Even today, we still dealing with it today. Everybody thinks just because we got Biden and things are going to change. We still in our same situation. But yet still a lot of people that are doing comics, as far as those that look like me, they're not even touching on any of that as far as I can tell. Some are, but not too many of them are. And the thing is, until they touch on that, then we can make a statement. We know outside of that, we're going to be making comics like Marvel and DC, typical comics. That's the reason why, that's the difference with my era and David, Sims, Dawood, our era, because our comics touched on what was really going on. The politics of everything. That's, politics are involved in our comics quite a bit. And that's something that's probably never going to change. You may have a few people that are doing comics today, Blacks that are doing comics, that may touch on that slightly or whatever. But back then we came hardcore knocking them out. Original Man, Omega Man came out, boom, hit them right in the head. You know what I mean? We even called our characters what the enemy was for the most part, what the enemy is till today. Klansmen, we called them that. But right now everybody's, they so nerded out or whatever. They just it's like don't even know what that means. But they come up with the term, oh yeah, another hotepper. But what is hotep? Can the person even tell me what that is? They can't. HTP, they don't know what that is. If they actually study the glyphs, they would know it had nothing to do with the coin term that they came up with.
Right.
And to me, it's a misfortune and it's unfortunate that people run around talk about, hotep or woke, things of that nature, because all actuality, a person that was woke have stayed woke. That's like taking the red pill. Isn't it the red pill where you go down the rabbit hole and you keep going and you know how far it is?
I can't remember which one, but I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Whichever pill it was, which I think it was the red.
Yeah.
A woke person has taken that pill and has not looked back. A person that's making mockery of a person that's quote unquote woke is the one that has taken that blue pill, still walking around confused and lost.
Right. I hear you. Yeah. My man Marcus jumped in and said, yeah, Afrocentric Comics of the 90s sold more books back then than the average independent comic creator of today.
And that is 100% correct, because we had all of our books in all the black bookstores throughout the United States. We had black expos, whatever, throughout the United States, like New York Black Expo, Detroit Black Expo, Chicago Black Expo, Indianapolis Black Expo. We had them all around. We sold so many books back then, it was crazy. Right now, with the woke community, the quote unquote, the ones that want to use those coin frames, woke and hotel, they ain't sold nowhere near as many books as we sold back then. Right. And I was just starting back then. And that's why that's one of the reasons why I said earlier that, you know, I could do a show right here in Detroit, the Mecca of Blackness, and a whole lot of people would show up. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because they know that my stories are not corny in the sense of typical Archie type shit. So I can say that, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's typical stories like Archie and that kind of bullshit. They already know how I'm coming. I'm smacking them in the head.
Right. And I think that whole era, you know, basically that was sort of like the theme. It was unapologetic before it was popular now to be unapologetic, as far as unapologetically black. And I think that, and it's we have to definitely understand that we can be comfortable being unapologetically black now because there were so many creators that were basically, you know, just like any other historical aspect of this, it's like there was somebody before us that laid the groundwork and put in the time and the effort and proved that this thing could work. You know, I think a lot about how that whole Chitlin, or quote unquote Chitlin circuit, as far as black bookstores and black events, being able to sell products, you know, basically being able to support these creative endeavors by, you know, getting the support of the black community directly. And that's part of the reason why I created Peep Game Comics, because I knew that historically that, you know, when black people supported, you know, black creators, when they knew that they were there and they could have access to them, then they would support. You know, it wouldn't be a question of, well, you know, black people aren't buying my book and all this kind of stuff, or, you know, people aren't supporting me in X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, actually, historically, we've always supported each other. And it's just a matter of creating the machine that's going to get in front of these audiences again, you know, bring these, you know, expos back, bring these events back, you know, things like that.
Correct.
We got a comment here. You know, Mr. Bass, thanks for this education. I was unaware. Appreciate the history to today's world.
Thank you. Anytime.
Is there any other points like that? Because I know there's a lot of history behind this. There's a ton of that whole era back then. Because I was talking about Brother Man specifically earlier. I was saying that I just got a copy of Brother Man #1 for $20. About, you know, and I think I got it for a steal. And
you did.
I got it for a steal, and it's undervalued because the street value for that book is they only say like $2. And I know that book is worth, historically and otherwise, that book is worth, it's not even personal. It's like, I can't even begin to place a value on it.
Right,
But
because it's worth quite a bit. When
yeah.
when you really think about it, you can't put a value on it. That's the whole thing, and that's why I was saying earlier. In order for us to be able to place value on what we have and what we've been doing, is through the people that we represent and the people supporting and this, us creating events, all around it. Once we, all of us can get out and get to the different shows.
Mm-hmm.
Now you get more exposure, and not just going to the typical, Wizard World, San Diego Comic Con. Because like I told somebody a couple of weeks ago, we're just like speckles of pepper in a salt jar. Still,
Right.
even at our own events,
Mm-hmm.
we just have to make sure that we get ourselves out there, and that's through our events. No matter which one it is, we should be supporting all the events. If we can do it, we should make it happen. Like you say, you have Peep Game Comics. If an event that's going on as far as Black Age style event, we should be promoting on Peep Game Comics.
Mm-hmm.
It helps because Peep Game Comics got that name. Just like the Black Comics Festival in New York, it should be promoted, even though that one really doesn't need to be promoted because it's
It's
so
New York.
crowded up there. You
Right.
can't even walk through the place.
You know, I always hoped the New York show was a perfect example of this. That I was hoping to see that eventually larger publishers would start supporting these events. I think that's
Right.
where the future of these Black themed comic events are at. It's like when it was the Schomburg and John and them, they did an awesome job. But the idea that Marvel, came in and set up, I think it was a big deal. And I think
Right.
I will hope, through programs like this that, larger publishers will see the value in some of these Black themed events and and invest in them, set up. It's like where, how was this?
I agree with you, Imani, on that. But the thing about the enemy, I would say the enemy, they always pick our creams of the crop out. You know what I mean? We're
Well,
not
yeah.
going to into these guys. Let me take Imani out of this little jar here, and I'm gonna make him part of me or whatever.
Well,
They've
yeah.
done it for years.
There's a danger there, but at the same time, I think it's just like we were me and Marcus was talking about earlier. It's sort of like we definitely have to move in a way that's going to help elevate the cause to a degree.
Right.
Not to say that, and I'm not saying, of course, right. We're not trying to. I'm not saying we have to sell out.
No, I'm not saying that either.
I am saying that the presence of, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a big two. It's just like there's some independent, publishers, that are Black owned even. I'm talking about like Lion Forge, even if Lion Forge invested in a couple of these events, it would make a significant difference. You know what I'm saying? It's like even if it's like it's like I'm not even talking about Marvel or DC. There's some even if like Image, the independent creators that they have on their roster, they, if like you had like the creative team of Excellence did a Black, did OnyxCon or did Motor City, they did a tour of these shows, it would be it would bring a significant attention to.
It's interesting that you bring that up because one of my guests for the show in 2020 was going to be Saladin Ahmed. I don't know if you know him. He wrote Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
And Abbott, he did Abbott or whatever. His name alone had so many people on board to do the show in 2020. It was crazy. So I understand exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And Saladin Ahmed, see, he's local. He stayed maybe 5 minutes away right here in Dearborn. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
It was good to be able to contact him.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. He was willing to do the event. He was set up and ready to do it. But, through COVID, had to cancel out. But I understand exactly what you're saying. Sometimes if you get a bigger name like that that's in those other companies, it would bring out a lot more. But like if these other companies would like invest into what's going on, like come and set up a sponsorship booth or something like that.
Right.
That would help, and it would help.
You're right. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, because of course, yeah, they're gonna be coming with their money. So it's like, yeah, like putting money in the hands of, Black business owners like yourself that are creating these events. That's what I'm speaking to.
Right.
And then
Okay.
and then we can build this. It's almost the exact same formula of San Diego and even New York Comic Con. They build around the larger publishing, companies. That's how they, are able to draw the crowds that they have. And
Right.
that's really all I'm speaking to. And then as long as, as creators, we stay on our P's and Q's and don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe, we should be all right as far as, staying staying independent and not, falling for the okie doke as far as that goes. But it's like you definitely got to stay smart. That's regardless of
Yeah, that's true.
what you're involved in, for sure.
I do agree. I don't know what happened to Turtel. I just knew for a fact because you had a flyer for him, right? He was on the flyer, I thought.
Yeah, I had a flyer and everything. But I can maybe see if I can get it back later.
You may have forgotten.
No, but it's that Abbott is So Good, Volume 2 of one of my favorite companies.
Yes, they're familiar with Saladin Ahmed's work.
And that's the thing. Like, people don't. It's interesting. It's conversations like this that help bring attention to creators like that and make those connections for folks. I don't think sometimes I think we get so caught up in some of the hype, we just lose track of the momentum that we are making in the industry. What else have you done aside from the comic books that helps bring attention to the work that not just you're doing, but other people like your community of creators there in Detroit?
Well, we have a group here known as Detroit Tradecraft. Like I start out a little bit. The Detroit Tradecraft, they're doing stuff right now. They've been doing art workshops at the Charles H. Wright Museum like every Saturday. And I think this past Saturday, just yesterday, they had David Perrin. He drew a couple of Marvel books as well, and he's doing a workshop there. I wasn't able to participate in the workshops myself because of the work schedule and everything. But needless to say, that's the type of stuff we're trying to get together on. Having meetings, doing workshops, whatever, bringing the community together like that. Especially those that are really interested in doing, comic style art or manga, whichever their avenue is. Most younger people, they're into manga. So, needless to say, we're just working on getting them together. We already know that the con, the Motor City Black Age Comics, is really my main thing or whatever. Because that helps bring the community in on what we're doing as a whole, as far as with Black comics. And if we can get workshops going every week here or every other week, I'm open and happy with that. Because they learn every avenue and every aspect of writing a comic, drawing, laying the comics out, whatever they're interested in, they'll learn it all. And Charles H. Wright Museum, fortunately, they allowed us to do that and set that up.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm doing that same thing here in Toledo, and I really enjoy sharing how to create comic books with young folks in this seeing the stories that they're bringing, you know. So it's sort of like you're seeing um, this thing for so many different vantage points. You've been a part of history, and also you've been a part of the future as well, as far as bringing in other, young folks into, the comic book industry.
Correct.
And what do you see? What do you see on the horizon for those creators, for future generations? Where do you see all this heading?
I see a lot going on because, like I said, like we were speaking on earlier, as far as being one of the genesis of Black comics in the 90s or early 90s. I see now we're getting a whole new generation is getting on board right now with doing anime, manga. Some are doing comics. They're getting ready to take it to a whole nother level. You figure if we have events or cons set up for them, and if we can continue on doing that, they're just going to make it bigger. And the bigger it is, and the bigger it becomes. And I could see one of the bigger companies coming out, and at that point, once they see what's going on, investing, into the different shows. As far as either getting their people out or just, like I said, setting up a sponsorship booth. They set up a sponsorship booth, that's everything right there.
Right. Well, all right. We got a few more minutes left. How can people get your books? Get hip to Motor City Black Agent Comics?
Well, they can go on my website at urbanstylecomics.com. They can learn more about Urban Style Comics by going to the website. I also have a link, and I also have a store page, which is urbanstylecomics.store.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the store page, it has everything that Urban Style Comics has to offer, T-shirts, and so on and so forth, posters, anything is on there. The Motor City Black Agent Comics, you can find me on Facebook, Motor City Black Agent Comics. You can go to the actual website, Motor City Black Age, and basically you can contact me directly if you want through Facebook, Andre Batts. And once again, Urban Style Comics, they can contact me all the time through my Gmail account. We can always communicate, talk more if you want to learn more, discuss more about things that you're trying out. Because I have several people from all over, they always contact me to learn more about copyrights. And you have people all the time calling, asking, or writing in on different things that they're trying to do. And I feel that by doing so, I've been helping a whole lot of different independents or whatever, even those that aren't even out there yet. They're young people that they'll contact me in a minute. Hey, I'm trying to learn how to do this with my book, that with my book. And as soon as I get the opportunity, which usually is that same day, I'll contact them right back. And then we'll have a conversation, and I'll let them know, everything they need to do to establish, actual comic, because I don't have access to people in Nigeria right away like that, or people in small town Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and so on and so forth.
Right.
I think working with them, I see that's what's going to do a lot for us in the future.
What on that? What is a piece of advice? What's one of your best pieces of advice that you would give an up and coming Black creator that's looking to come into this whole new age?
Well, most creators, and this is what I say all the time, most beginning creators, beginning artists, always tell them, make sure that they stay true to their craft. No matter what happens, stay true to themselves, stay true to their craft. The thing of the matter, they're going to end up running into a lot of different distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of different things, whether it's positive or negative. They have to remain true to their craft and accept it for what it is, and always just continue developing that craft but always stay true to their craft. Whether they're a writer, whether they're artists, whether they're colorists, it doesn't make any difference. If you do it all, stay true to your craft, and I guarantee you're gonna see all your treasures in the end.
How have you stayed true to your craft? What is the thing that you like hold on to?
Well, I've stayed true to Dreadlocks as far as the whole concept of it, and like you brought up a little bit earlier, as far as the time frame that I came under, the time period, and what we were dealing with then. I feel that the same thing is still going on today, but I think it's been masked quite a bit. So Dreadlocks character, you know, and creating him and developing him the way that I did, the story still holds true to what's going on in today's society. And a lot of people, you know, when I do different shows, like in New York, you know, a lot of people, they gravitate to that or whatever, because they know that it's not a typical comic, I should say. It's a comic, but it's a lot involved with it. I don't go over the top with the information or whatever. I try to provide it in a way where, you know, people can actually research some of the information themselves. You know, so I consider myself teaching without teaching, edutainment. You know, Karis, he coined the best edutainment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I've stayed true to that. You know, I haven't changed from that format whatsoever. I may have added a few different new things to what I do, but for the most part, I've stayed true to my whole concept and the reason why I'm here. Because everybody is part of a blueprint in this universe, and I think that my blueprint that I'm a part of, you know, I've stuck to it, and I've continued working on it as far as developing it. As far as that's concerned, I'm learning from new guys and what they're doing as far as the up-and-coming guys. I look at their stories, and I look at things that I could kind of change up a little bit with mine or whatever. And that's why I appreciate some of the writers like I spoke on earlier today. And hopefully they can continue on, you know, and be around like I am today. And hopefully they'll be around in another 20 years as well.
For sure, man. All right. Thanks, Andre. I appreciate you coming out. You can check out his event, the Motor City Black Age of Comics. Hopefully it can come out this summer, but if not live, then it'll definitely be virtual, I'm sure. You're watching Black Comics Universe presented by Peep Game Comics exclusively on The Experience. Please help us out by hitting share and giving us a like and a follow. Then make sure to tune in for our original programming 7 days a week. And we'll be right back.